We're going to be factoring by grouping. These are when we have 4 terms or more that you'll be using this method. So our first problem, we have 12x cubed minus 28x squared minus 9x plus 21. Now, in these problems, we can't use the box to start off with because there's too many terms. So we have to figure out what other methods we have. And what you're going to end up doing is we're going to end up splitting them into 2 sets. The first 2 terms and the last 2 terms, and we're going to insert a plus sign in between. And so I'm going to rewrite this. So my first 2 terms is 12x cubed minus 28x squared, close, plus negative 9x plus 21. Our goal is to end up with the same binomial left in the parenthesis, but we're going to factor out something from each one. So let's take the green set first. Is there a common factor shared between the 2 terms in the green parenthesis, the first parenthesis?
4.
A 4.
X.
And then an x to the what power?
Second.
So this is kind of like when we're doing the box. You're looking at the 2 things. Think of them as your row. What do they share? What are we going to pull out? That's going to leave us behind 3x minus 4.
7.
Or, yes, 7. I'm sorry. I wrote down what I was factoring out, didn't I? In my next parenthesis, I want to factor out something that they share. Now, if your first term is negative, you're going to factor out a negative. So they share a 3, and the first term is negative, so I'm factoring out a negative. So that's basically like me dividing by a negative 3. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is a positive 3x. Positive 21 divided by negative 3 is a negative 7. And instead of writing negative 7, I write minus 7. At this point, these parentheses should match, do they? So we are going to write down the parenthesis, and then write down what is left with the sign in between. So what is plus and minus? How will we write that? Just a minus. So 4x squared minus 3. If your second parenthesis, or if either one of your parentheses has a squared term, you want to check to see if it's a difference of squares. If it's squared, see if it's difference of squares. If it's cubed, see if it's sum or difference of cubes. So can I take the square root of 4x squared? That would give me 2x. Can I take the square root of 3? No. So we stop. So this is our answer. Sometimes you stop pretty quickly. Sometimes you do have to keep going because some of these factors will factor again. And we're going to do one more just to show you where they factor again. So problem 2, we have x to the 5th plus 27x squared minus 4x cubed minus 108. So step 1, split into 2 parentheses. So my first parenthesis plus my second parenthesis. So x to the 5th plus 27x squared plus a negative 4x cubed minus 108. So in that first parenthesis, what can factor out?
X squared.
X squared is what they share. That leaves me back 3 x's here, so x cubed plus 27. On my second parenthesis, what can be factored out? Negative 4. Leaving us x cubed minus 27.
Why
So-
on the first one did we change the plus 2 minus
Oh.
2 out?
I didn't change it. Yep. It should be a plus.
Oh.
Because when I divide by a negative 4, it would change both of them. Thank you for catching that, because I would have been frustrated here in a second.
Mhm.
So these match. Make sure they match, because if not, there's something that we did wrong going above. So we factor out what they share, which is that parenthesis, x cubed plus 27. What's left behind is x squared minus 4. Now, we have 2 parentheses. We want to see, can I factor these again? So, let's look at the second one. Let's do that one first. Actually, let's go ahead and do the first one because it'll be easier on spacing for me. So, this is 2 cubed terms added because the cube root of 27 is 3 and the cube root of x is x. So when you factor the sum of cubes, the first parenthesis is x plus 3. The second parenthesis is you square the first thing that you had, opposite sign, product, square. And so remember, we use SOAP to help us remember the signs. Same, opposite, always positive. Now for the difference of squares, you square root the first term, x, square root the last term, 4. So I can do this. And so when you're doing the difference of squares, you just write down their square roots with opposite signs in between in both parentheses. So this is my final answer.
Where did you get that?
How did you get that?
Minus 2 plus 2?
Okay, let me go and let's just practice a few of these 2 rules.
I mean, how did you get that other number besides the x plus 3? Look down and look up.
Okay, so x plus 3, the first one, the x squared, comes from squaring the first term. So the first term with the parenthesis in front of it. So x squared is x squared.
But why am I squaring?
It's the rule. This is the rule for factoring cubes. The sum or difference of cubes. The middle term is the product of the 2 in the first parenthesis. And the last term is the square of that first term in the first parenthesis. And so let's just do another one just so we can remember how to do that. Okay. So if I have 8x cubed minus 125. You cube root 8x cubed. So thinking about that, 8. What number times itself 3 times is going to give me 8?
2.
So we have 2, 3, 2, so that's going to give us 2. And I'm looking for a set of 3, so if I have x cubed, I would have one set of 3 x's. 125. I'm trying to figure out the cube root. What number times itself 3 times is going to be 125? So 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. So 5. The first parenthesis is always the cube root of both numbers with the same sign in between. So if it's minus sign here, it's minus sign here. So that's the same. Now, we don't even look at the original problem. We just look at that first parenthesis, and we're going to use that to help us create our second parenthesis. So to create our second parenthesis, we are going to square the first term. So 2x, and we're multiplying it times itself. That's going to give us 4x squared. The middle term is created by doing the product. So 2x times 5 gives us 10x. This sign is going to be opposite. So whatever is in the first parenthesis, we're going to go opposite. And then the last parenthesis, or last term, is we take the last term and we square. So we're going to square 5. So that's going to give us 25. And its sign is always positive. That's factoring a difference of cubes. Sum of cubes is going to be the same, except for these. The first two signs will be different because when you have the same and opposite, it's going to be opposites.
After that, how did you get the x minus 2x plus 2?
That's what we're about to go over the next one. So if we have, the last one was the difference of squares. So if I have a squared term minus a squared term. So 25x squared minus 49. So can I take the square root of the first term? Gives me 5x. Can I take the square root of 49? And so on this, it's the easiest of the two. You're going to have a plus and a minus. And then you have 5x as the first term in both of them, and 7 as the last term in both of them. There, I think, are videos on Classroom where we have some of these problems worked out. If not, I'll share them to Classroom. I'll try to see if I can link them back into this lesson. So if you want to go back and watch some more videos on these when we did them earlier, you can.